Net Live. Our bumper is running, and we are recording this. We are streaming on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter/Periscope. And our guest is waiting, and our chat room is also waiting. We'll start a countdown to Studio 13. Well, good evening and welcome to pjnet.tv for this special edition, never been done before. And we are honored to have as our guest tonight Mr. Butterman himself. Now, you may not know the backstory on Mr. Butterman, Donny Willis, but he was the Butterman in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, and got catapulted into national celebrity status because he irritated the heck out of Al Roker, I think. But anyway, we're going to do something different tonight. We are going to have a special 1-hour edition, and we are going to go through the book. Donny was kind enough to send me a copy of his book, and I actually eventually read it. And I should have read it sooner because it was quite an inspiration. And I want you all to get prepared to be inspired. When this program concludes, you will feel like you have walked out of a Rocky movie. Okay. And Donny is an energetic individual who loves the Lord. He is the pastor of a church in Westchester, New York, I believe, Donny. And welcome to the program. I'm excited to get into the good things. Why did you have to write? I mean, I understand the butter thing just happened spontaneously and organically. Why did you have to write a book?
Well, Coach, first of all, thank you so very much for having me on to talk about the book. It's such a high honor to be with you, and I'm really looking forward to this hour.
There's
and
not that many people watching, Donny. Don't get too carried away.
Hey, I'm all in. Whether it's just me and you or 100 people, I'm all in at all times. I enjoy being an 8-cylinder guy all the time.
Okay.
But the book, yeah, it was actually an idea in my head for a while. I've got a file on my computer, thoughts for a book, and so I just constantly just throw it into that file anytime. And now a friend of mine named Cynthia Lovely found me at a conference in Connecticut and was like, Donny, we knew of each other, but we had never met. And she was like, Donny, have you ever thought about writing a book? And I was like, absolutely. She's like, we need to make this happen, and really kind of propelled me into this using the butter as the launching point of the platform to kind of jump off of. And it was a fun process.
So briefly, in case nobody is aware, tell us the backstory that you were the Butterman in the parade, and somehow you didn't even have a Twitter account, and you were trending on Twitter.
Yes. So it was at the 2009 Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. Me and the Today Show anchor Al Roker had this hilarious run-in. I'm the giant stick of butter, and it was through a crazy course of events that I was even in the parade. But then as I get there, I put on this giant stick of butter, running down the street. Al Roker's entourage, somebody yelled, "Hey, Butter, come see," because he had some butter jokes. And as he did that, I'm standing there. He drops the butter jokes on me, and then I kind of come back into his camera with a few jokes of my own, and he does a shove to me. And as he shoves me away, that moment goes viral on Twitter. And like you mentioned, I was trending on Twitter before I had a Twitter. And then I ran into him again. He shoves me away again. That moment goes viral on Twitter, and it just kind of took off from there. The director and creator of the Broadway show Hamilton picked it up and started tweeting about it, and from there it was like a wildfire. The Today Show wanted me on, so I've been on the Today Show a couple of times. Really great people, developed some good relationships, and so yeah, that's kind of the backstory of where this butter came from.
Well, the other interesting thing that I have discovered about you is you are actually a Cajun up in New York City.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm from South Louisiana.
and it was, you did it intentionally. I mean, this was like a goal, a dream of yours to, and I just thought, New York City, really?
Yeah.
Just seems like cultural conflict to me. But nonetheless, folks, this book, I'll tell you the backstory on after I get over the hiccups. I was doing a project that I'd never done before, having to do with 3D animation. And I had my little project, so then you have to render it. So I pressed the button. I didn't know, and I began to wait for the things to start, and 1%, 2%, and I realized that this is going to take several hours. It ultimately took 16 hours. And Donnie had sent me this book that I had promised to read, and we'll share about it on the program. And I thought, well, I guess this is the opportunity. And I picked it up and never put it down. Well, I did actually. I'd pick it up, read a chapter, go do some pull-ups, sit down exhausted, and so forth. Folks, this book, I don't pass out compliments that without meaning. This is the kind of book that I was reading when I was in my 20s. Those books were typically Norman Vincent Peale, Napoleon Hill, Robert Schuller, books like that certainly have spiritual depth. But folks, Donnie is the type of Christian, a pastor that appeals to even the unchurched person. And I went through and marked several little passages throughout the book, and I just wanted to have a chance to toss them at Donnie and share them with you and get his take on it. So I don't know how long this will take, but I hope that you are as inspired and as energized as I was encountering. I mean, you'll notice I put the page number here. There's more. There's one on every page, so this is just a sample. But the first one I came across was, having thoughts is not the problem. It's managing those thoughts.
Yes. Yes. So Michigan State University, whenever I'm doing all this research, they did this thing on stress less with mindfulness. It was like a program that they were running. And what they found is that 90%, coach, 90% of the thoughts in our head are repetitive. We've had those thoughts before. 80% of all the thoughts in our head are negative. Think about that. 80% of all the thoughts that are in your head are negative thoughts. And so we constantly have thoughts, but we have to be able to manage our thoughts. We are constantly exposed to social media, movies, books, network news, 24-hour cycle, people around us. And because of all of the intake that we have, our thoughts definitely affect us. And, all of our lives, happiness, our sadness, our good, our bad, our carnal, or our spiritual, it all begins in our thought life. And we have to be able to regulate what comes in and what goes out. That's why, parents are careful with screen time with their kids, because they're managing the thought life. That's why we need to be careful with what we watch, because we're managing our thought life. That's why we need to be careful what we read, because we're managing our thought life. Because what you read, what you see, all of these things, we constantly consume information that can throw our emotions into chaos. Read the wrong news report first thing in the morning and see if it throws off your entire day. That's why, as a pastor, I tell people, pray, read the Bible, gird up the loins of your mind, if you want King James vernacular there. But basically what it is just manage your thoughts.
Well, if you don't manage your thoughts, they will manage you.
That is so true. Oh, that's so true.
Maybe I should write a book. I don't know.
There you go. But we have to restructure our thought life in order to produce that new and positive thoughts, to have that fresh outlook on life. Because other than that, you'll be negative and repetitive. So we have to work to find the new positive thoughts. But it's there. It just takes a little bit of work.
The next golden nugget is found just a few pages later on page 77. Our decisions affect not only ourselves, they affect everyone around us. Really?
That's so true. Oh my goodness. Quick story for you, a Bible story here. You may be familiar with the Old Testament character named Jonah.
Hmm.
Jonah was God's man. He was what the Old Testament calls a prophet. And Jonah decides, hey, I'm going to run from God. What an elementary mindset of a prophet of God. I'm just going to run from God. So he gets on this ship and he goes to a place that God told him not to go. And he's supposed to go to this other place that he doesn't want to go. And this massive storm comes on this ship. And eventually Jonah gets thrown overboard and gets swallowed by a great fish. But think about this: the captain did not run from God, but the captain was in a storm. The crew did not run from God, but the crew was in a storm. That cargo that got thrown overboard, it did nothing wrong. The problem was there was one person who made a bad decision, and everybody around them had to suffer the consequences of that bad decision. And in real life terms, think of somebody who goes to prison. That decision that they made, it doesn't just affect them. It affects their family. It affects their mother. It affects their spouse. It affects their kids. It affects everybody. And that can be negative or positive. No decision you make. Whenever we decide to move to New York, that didn't just affect us. It affected everybody in our sphere of life because it affected them emotionally. It affected our jobs. It affected everything. So no decision is ever made in a vacuum. That's why we have to be very careful with our decisions.
Actually, in the account of Jonah, and I forget who brought it up. Was it Jonah saying, I want to not drag you down with me? Or if it was the crew that said, you're dragging us down. But either way, there
Yeah.
was an awareness that God's wrath was being hurled out, and they were in the path of that wrath
Yeah.
without culpability. And okay, well, moving on. I love this one. And this, it may take you a little bit longer to explain it, but he said, you say that on page 86 there are four responses. Number one, cop outs. Number two, holdouts. Number three, dropouts. And number four, sold outs.
Yes. Yes. Um, so in this, I'm talking about our beliefs. Whenever you make a decision, you have to own your belief, or you have to believe in your decision. If you don't believe in your decision that you just made about your dreams, about your life, nobody else is going to believe you. You're the first person that has to believe in what you're doing, and and your belief is always tested. It's one thing to talk about your dreams. It's one thing to talk about your beliefs. It's another to actually do something about them. And the only real measure of belief is action. No, the scripture says faith without works is dead. Yeah, it's there, and there are usually four responses. There's cop outs. Those are people who, they have no goals and they do not commit. There's holdouts, people who don't know if they can reach their goals, so they're afraid to commit. There's dropouts, people who start but they quit whenever life gets in the way or something gets in the way. And then there's sold outs, people who set their goals, they commit to them, they pay the price to reach them. And so, but your belief is just always tested. It's always tested. And you have to find out, how do I really believe in what I'm doing? I pastor in New York. We just launched a second campus in Manhattan off of Times Square. There is nothing easy about it. And I had to come to a very deep place in my own heart that said, I believe this and I am sold out to this. And I believe it is the right thing to do. It is a conviction that I have to do this. And whenever you get to that point, I tell the story in the book. It's a legend about how in 1519 the Spanish explorer Cortez sailed to Mexico, and as his men get off the boats and they get to the shore, he sends an order to burn all of the ships. He said he told and he made his men stand there and look at the water, at the ships that took them to that land as they began to burn. They knew beyond any doubt that there was no return, there was no turning back. Their only option was either to conquer or die, and they had to believe in what they were doing. And that's convicting to me. Whenever if a dream is deep enough in your heart, you do you believe in it? And so that's kind of what I was pointing out, is people look at things differently. But whenever you're sold out to it, there's nothing like it.
Well, we're going to circle back around to that. I want to take a little detour. Yesterday, you posted a live video apparently on Facebook, and you were taking a bike ride, and the rain overtook you.
Yes, it
And
did.
there was you just shared three possible responses that have some real spiritual implications. The first one is just to just squint your eyes and lean forward and just go for it, just plow through it. And sometimes that's what it takes in our spiritual journey. The second thing you could do is just say, well, there's a little spot over there that's got a little protection. I could just kind of stop in there for a minute, safe harbor, and let the rain pass and then resume the journey. Well,
Mhm.
sometimes Jesus, from time to time, got away from it,
Yeah.
got away from the crowd and the ministry and all that, just to re-energize, revitalize, and himself. And then the other one was you could just call for help. And calling for help. I don't know about you, but this coach, I don't like that. I like to think I can handle everything.
Yeah. 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 I agree. I'm right there with you.
Very
Especially
inspirational.
whenever I had a wife at home with three kids, she wasn't coming to help me.
No, you can sit out there and get wet. On page 92,
Yeah.
anyone can have an idea, but what you do with the idea is the point of separation.
Mm.
Now, tell us more. What did you mean? What are you talking about when you say the point of separation?
So Christopher Columbus had just come back from discovering the New World. He's sitting in a pub with some buddies. One of them's giving this hard time, saying all you did was get in a boat and you started sailing. Ridiculous! You're being a national hero, and all you did was ride in a boat. Anybody could have done that. And legend says that Columbus spotted this hard-boiled egg on the bar, and he handed it to his friend with a challenge. He said, "Let's see if you can stand this egg on his end." The man tried. The egg rolled down. The man tried again. The egg rolled back down again. And then he hands it to Columbus and he says, "Your turn." Columbus picks up the egg and he smashes the bottom of it into the table. And, the egg sat smugly upright. And the man snapped and said, "I could have done that. Anybody could have done that." Columbus looked back at him and said, "But you didn't." Anybody can have an idea, but it's what you do with the idea that you have. That's the point of separation. You can have a thought, but if we don't act upon it, what are we doing? Because production matters. It absolutely matters. There's a poem that says there was a man in the world who is never turned down whenever he has a chance to stray. He gets the glad hand in the populous town or where the farmers are making hay. He's greeted with pleasure in the desert sands and in the deep aisles of the wood. Wherever he goes, there's a welcoming hand because he's the man that delivers the goods. And there is just something special about people that can produce. I think that's the point of separation between an idea and somebody who can have follow through. And there's power in production
Indeed. Folks,
and success.
I don't know if you're noticing, but there's little nuggets of wisdom, it seems like, on every other page. And there's more. And this is not an exhaustive list of profound statements found in this book. It's just the one I edited. You refer to this as the domino effect. And on page 94, you make the following statement: success is sequential, not simultaneous.
Yes. Um,
But your success was meteoric, right? You got on the Macy's parade and You would be nothing without that.
Well, if you look at it, 10 years before that, God called me to New York, and I began to do homework, one thing at a time. And then it was um, getting in the right position at the right time. And then it was just being at the right spot, saying yes to the right opportunities. I don't think that whenever I say it's not simultaneous, I don't feel like everything happens at once. I think that it's kind of like the domino effect. You go after the first domino, and then the second one will fall, and things you have to make sure that everything lines up and is in order. Is focusing on the one thing that's in front of you today. See, some people may look at my life and think, "Oh man, it just kind of happened, just like that." But what they don't see is the decade of prayer, the decade of studying, the decade of learning everything I can about the Northeast and about New York, and just being able to, over time it adds up, and there's incredible power that's unleashed whenever you push those dominoes. But for each individual increment to the final product, it takes time. And so time spent is essential to being able to see your dreams come to pass. We live in a microwave society. We want everything right now, right now. If you can't get your fast food in 30 seconds, well, you want to go trash the store on Twitter. And our generation can't tolerate slowness. We want everything to happen fast. I mean, if we think about the last sitcom we watched, within a 30-minute time slot, we had a beginning, we had drama, and then we had a conclusion right there. But life doesn't necessarily work that way. Meaningful growth and productivity is more, it moves incrementally. Fast is slow and slow is fast. So I don't think it's just like some crazy combustion right at the thing. I think it's a series of events that line up, and eventually, the dominoes do start falling quicker, but it's one thing after the other.
Well, we see the avalanche of dominoes, and we're kind of enthralled with that. We're kind, but of course somebody meticulously lined up those dominoes, and when sometimes they this is kind of an art form. It's not just a line of dominoes.
Yeah.
They had to have a vision of what the end result would be, and we don't take into account the hours of tedious work that were invested in that moment when that first domino is pushed and the chain reaction begins. We discount. Oftentimes we see the result
Yeah.
of something and we say, "I want that." Well,
Yeah.
who wouldn't?
Yeah.
But
That's
but we don't
exactly.
want what led up to it.
It's the sacrifice. If you want something great, anything that you get that's great in life, you is always followed by a great sacrifice. What people don't see, like they see, like the cover of the book behind you, it looks fun and exciting and it's butter and it's a cool story and it's a fun story. But what people don't see is the few months that my family lived in a hotel room in Stamford, Connecticut, because that's all we could afford, because we felt like God called us to New York. And so we were staying in Stamford because it was the cheapest hotel room we could find. And they don't see me holding a newborn outside of that hotel room, walking up and down the hallway to try to keep her quiet. That's what, like, those are things that people don't see your sacrifice, they just see your success.
Hmm.
And but without the sacrifice there is no success. And success takes a lot of time. It's time spent, it's an intensity of focus, it's earning trust with people. If I would have never earned trust with the people at Macy's, that moment would have never happened. All of these things are pieces of the puzzle, are dominoes that have to be lined up in order for the success to come. It will come, but it takes work. Like you said, it takes work to line up the right dominoes.
You had to go to clown school or something, didn't you?
And we did. That was so much fun. Oh my goodness. So at clown school, they really taught you two things. Number one, high energy. I have a problem with that one. and
Yeah.
and number two, cheer for others. Another one I have an issue with. But those are really two things that they really hammered in. Keep your energy high and cheer for other people. And I love those, man. There's nothing like cheering on somebody else.
Well, Donnie, I remember in reading your book, one of one of your purposes was to find those spectators in the parade that didn't have the good seats, that
Yeah.
made the sacrifice to get up there, but still had the crappy. What is it? Streets run east and west, and avenues run north. But
Yep.
anyway, but
Yep.
you went out of your way, so to speak, and this is what Jesus did, by the way, to
Yeah.
bring some joy into their life because they sacrificed too
Yes, they
to
did.
get there. And it's easy for us to accept the accolades of those that line the streets that we walk, but do we look down that side street
Yeah.
for the person who is less fortunate and
Yeah.
doesn't have the front row seat?
That's exactly right, Coach. There were kids tucked in those. I mean, if you're headed from the north to the south on the avenue, there's a kid standing there where his back, because of the way it's angled, his back is actually to where the parade is coming from. So he has to watch it as it's passing him by. And to me, that was just unacceptable for me, and I could do something about it. So yeah, I was running out of the avenue into the streets, giving as many people high fives as I possibly could, because they woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning. They got their kids dressed in the freezing cold, put on hats and gloves and scarves and everything else to be at that spot. And I just want to make sure that, man, I was glad I was there, because at the end it's not about the people in the parade. It's about the people watching the parade.
Well,
That's who it's all about.
and the wise men journeyed far to go to a manger.
That's right. That's right.
You're a good man, Donnie. All right. On page 95 of your book, you say, don't focus on being busy. Focus on being productive.
Yes. The house of productivity. Ground floor is time. Everyone has the same 24 hours in the day. You get to choose what you do with it. Second floor is what I call focus. This is where you believe, your plan. This is where you believe in yourself. This is what am I giving my focus to. The third floor is trust, being able to trust that what you're doing, and being able to move through that. But whenever we are, can you put that quote back up? I talked myself
Did
out
you
of knowing
forget what you
I said.
said?
Yeah, something about productivity.
Don't
Don't focus
focus
on
on
being
being
busy.
busy. Focus on being productive, and I would add, be effective.
Yes, yes. Anybody can be busy. I can fill my calendar up with being busy, but whenever I'm productive, it's all pointing in the same direction. It's knowing where we're going, know what we're doing. I can feel it's having that goal at the end. Not like I mentioned, I could be busy all day long. I can fill my calendar up with a lot of things, but are those things that I really need to be doing in order uh, to make Westchester Church better,
Mhm.
in order to make Living Hope NYC better? Knowing exactly what your purpose is helps you be effective and helps you be purposeful. It's just knowing what you're doing and why you're doing it. And it's not about being busy. I have no desire to be busy. I want to be effective and purposeful.
I'm going to kind of segue into the next quote because as a
Yeah.
coach, when there's a kick or a punt, there's a receiver back there to receive it. And as a coach, I try to say, it might be better just to take 3 steps forward and get clobbered than to juke and jive around back and forth across the field because that whole time you're doing that, your opponent is drawing nearer. Okay,
Mm.
and in the next frame, I think you touch on that. So I'm going to use that as a segue. It doesn't matter how skilled or talented you are. It takes time to focus and get results. And I think it's part of being busy. We're busy being busy. And that's the juking and the jiving. You're running laterally across the field trying to avoid the defender in front of you or the opponent in front of you But we need to focus on the goal. The goal line's where we're trying to go. We're not
That's right.
trying to avoid the other guy. We're trying to get to
Right.
the goal line. And I think that we live in a culture that promotes heavily education, skill, talent, and wisdom as if they're synonymous.
Mm. Yeah.
If you'll just get
Yeah.
that degree, you'll make a lot of money. Oh, and if you just make a lot of money, you'll be happy. Because if you make a lot of money, you can buy the Corvette. And we're always in pursuit, and we're relying on the wrong things.
Right.
Actually, I invited you here to preach, so maybe I should let you preach.
Oh no, but the most untutored person with passion is going to be more effective than the most educated person with no passion.
Amen.
There's something awesome about somebody who takes the time to focus in on what they're doing and they're passionate about it. You can be very skilled and you can be very talented, but if you don't take the time to focus and get those results, because here's the thing, results build trust and trust opens doors. But the only way to get those results is to be passionate about making sure your dreams come true and not depending upon your skills. If my mom has her master's in technology. She got her master's in technology back in the 90s.
Mm-hmm. Back
That
when that was
master's,
lucrative, yeah.
that technology degree, it's so passé today, because things have changed. You cannot depend upon your skills or even your talents, because you can only go as on your own natural talents. You can only go as high as they can bring you, but there is always another level. And so you can't depend on natural talents. You have to be able to put in the work. You got to be able to put in the time, the focus to get wherever you want to go. And if you can depend on your natural talents to get you wherever you want to go, it's probably not that high of a goal anyways.
Well,
There should always be something stretching you beyond where you're at right now.
gosh, you got me going. Let this coach say that, the same thing is true with attitude. I would 10 times take a team of mediocre athletes with a good attitude over a team of the very highest skilled and talented without a
Yeah.
good attitude. Because you
Yeah.
see, with the right attitude, we can develop the skills. We can develop those things. But if you don't have the right attitude, your skills are meaningless.
Right. It's a mindset.
It's a mindset. Your passion and your attitude, as Zig Ziglar would say, your attitude determines your altitude.
I'm gonna quote I'm gonna talk about a coach here now that we're like on the sports analogies here, but a coach that I highly despise yet I highly respect, Coach Nick Saban down in Alabama.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Steve Spurrier, but continue.
Oh, I've got a love hate for Nick Saban.
Mm-hmm.
Being an LSU fan, let me clarify, I am a hardcore LSU fan. And the fact that he wears crimson, man, it's like over a decade ago, and I'm bitter about this. Lord, forgive me. But he talks a lot about the process.
Mm-hmm.
He's very big on the process. The average play in football is lasts 7 seconds. If the players concentrate on winning those seconds,
Mm-hmm.
take a break, take a rest between each play, and then do it again. You don't focus on the scoreboard. You focus on or the end result. You focus on winning the play right in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
You concentrate on finishing the small task right in front of you, and that is the game changer. You don't have to have a lot of. You have to have some talent. I'm not saying you don't, but
With the right attitude, you will develop that talent.
If you don't worry about the scoreboard,
Mm-hmm.
you can win. I'm going to win today.
Win this play.
At our church, at the end of church, every single week, I get in the microphone, or whoever's closing out service gets in. This is how we end service every week. And we say, we hope that today made you, and then the crowd responds, better, because we're a church that makes life better. And our goal is that today you're better than you were yesterday. Because if you're better today than you were yesterday, then that means tomorrow you're going to strive to be better than you were today. And you keep taking steps in the right direction. You don't try to win life all in one day. You just try to be better than you were yesterday. And that's a lot of where, your success can come from. You don't try to do it all in one day. It's just one domino at a time.
Well, Donnie, you didn't know that among my many professional adventures in life, I was once a personal trainer. And I was a personal trainer at age 48. And most personal trainers are about 22, 25. Most of the clientele at the gym where I worked were older soccer moms that were pretty darn obese. And what I would do is they would come in, and of course they want to know what we're going to do, and they're all ready to get started. They've made that commitment, and they want to put on that new pair of jeans that they can't get. Anyway, what are we going to do today, Coach? Well, we're going to get on the treadmill. Oh, okay. And so what do you want me to do? I said, I want you to put in 20 minutes on the treadmill. How fast do you want me to go? Oh, I don't care. Huh? And now before I did, I would take their heart rate rested. Mm-hmm. And I would put them on the treadmill, and I would record their heart rate at 1 minute intervals. And at the end of 20 minutes, then I would wait and time how long it took for their heart rate to return to rested. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, what else are we going to do today, Coach? Go home. See you tomorrow. Okay. So they come back tomorrow. What are we going to do today, Coach? We're going to do 20 minutes on the treadmill. We did that yesterday. I said, yes. How fast do you want me to go? I said, just do better than you did yesterday. And I would record the mileage, and I'd say, here's what you did yesterday. I don't care, but you can't go below that. So pace yourself. And of course, some of them got frustrated because, they want it now. They want, I haven't lost any weight overnight,
Yeah. Well, whenever I was preparing for my first half marathon, I was ready to run 13.1 immediately, but I learned quick. It's kind of like a rubber band. Mm-hmm. And it's not going to stretch immediately. It's going to one day at a time. At first, it was, okay, I made it half a mile without stopping. Then I made it 3/4 of a mile without stopping. Then I made it a mile without stopping. And every day, your body just kind of adjusts to it. And then all of a sudden, I'm running 13.1. Mm-hmm. And it was just an everyday thing. It was being able to wake up in the morning, do the plan, stop. The next day, do the plan, stop. And it's the same way with our dreams and our goals and our lives. We're not going to get wherever we want overnight. It's not going to happen. But that doesn't mean that you can't take a step today toward it. Mm-hmm.
Some of these clients, a week or so into the program, they haven't lost any weight. They'll say, I don't know if this is really doing me any good. And I'd get out my clipboard and say, today your rested heart rate is 86. Last week it was 96. Today, 3 minutes into this exercise, I could show them. I could show them that. And I said, you got to understand, your heart is a blood pump. Your heart is a more efficient blood pump. You are going to live longer.
And it's awesome that you celebrated the victories with them.
Yeah.
And you were able to show them, hey, no, look at your success. Yeah. Look. Don't get discouraged. Don't get frustrated. You've come a long ways.
Yeah.
And that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
The
Sometimes
scales,
I think,
you got to celebrate those 3 yards up the middle in a cloud of dust. By the way, J.D. Whittinger in the chat room says, go Tigers.
Go Tigers.
Or not go, it's Geaux.
Geaux.
Yeah, of course.
Yes.
Okay, well, folks, thanks for bearing with that little detour. It's fun talking to you, Donnie. I really enjoyed it. On page 98, let's talk passion. If you are not ready to shout to the world what you're doing, don't do it. You really mean that?
I really mean that. If you're gonna if you're gonna shout to the world what you're doing, be ready to do it. And what I mean by that is before you go off, oh, I want to do this, yeah, I want to do that, yeah, I want to do this and that. Internalize that first. Internalize your desires. Do as much homework as you can. Um, because if you just go tell people about your dreams, well, ask Joseph how that turned out. Mm-hmm. The
Folks,
dream was going to happen, but whenever he opened his mouth,
he
it created a trajectory for his life.
what you, things you do and say do matter.
It matters.
Folks, just to take a little break here, it is we've got about 20 minutes left. We are about 2/3 of the way through the selected passages that I have. So we're very much on the right pace here. So I just wanted to remind myself of the time. Okay, moving on. Ellipsis, meaning there was something said before this. You have to trust what you know rather than what you can see.
Yeah.
Ignore what we can see?
Yeah. I told a story about this helicopter pilot who was flying this aircraft across the Pacific, and he tells the story. He said, "I was flying the helicopter back to the ship when this blinding fog rolled in, flying at a low altitude. And he said, I knew that a single mistake would plunge my crew and me into the ocean. Worse yet, I was experiencing a complete loss of balance, which is common for pilots flying with instruments. This loss of balance, known as vertigo, was bad, so that despite the instrument readings, I was certain that I was flying on my side. For 15 minutes, I flew the helicopter by its instruments, fighting the urge to turn it according to how I was feeling. When we finally broke through the fog, I deeply was thankful that I relied on my instruments and not my feeling." So we have to trust what we know rather than what we see or feel, because you can't live by feeling. Mm-hmm. I believe that Scripture might say we walk by faith and not by sight, mm-hmm. because what we see might be deceiving. Mm-hmm. What do you know? What are you hearing? Your hearing is more important than what you feel. If you go back to even if you go back to Jacob being deceived. He's there. He's deceiving his father, and he puts on camel's hair or goat skin, on his arms, and he makes his father this meal. And he goes and he says, "Hey, bless me." And he's acting like he's his brother Esau, because his brother was hairy and he wasn't hairy. And his dad reaches out and he touches it. Well, you feel like Esau. You feel like the real thing. It feels good. Mm-hmm. But what I'm hearing is something totally different. And that's why we cannot base our lives off of what we feel or what we kind of see. We have to go off of what we know. His hearing was fine.
Donnie, I think you may have accidentally touched the mute button on your microphone. Yeah. Because you ain't talking no more. Or you're talking. We ain't hearing. That would be amazing. Okay. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a little break. Now, Donnie, there is a mute button on the Rendezvous dashboard. It's an icon of a microphone. Toggle that and see. Nope, that ain't it. Yeah, you just went away. I kid you not. What I'm going to do, Donnie, is I'm going to reset the connection between the two of us, okay? And I'll preach a little bit in the minute or so that takes. So I'm going to disconnect you, and then if you will reconnect, maybe we'll try again then, okay? There you go. And there he goes. And we're going to try to remember where Donnie... Hey, Donnie, welcome back. Hold on. Welcome back. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened, but anyway, yeah, your audio just went away. Donnie, I'm
I'm
glad
sorry.
you brought up that example of the aircraft pilot because among the many professional adventures that I have taken is flying aircraft,
Okay.
and I'm going to give you a lesson in flying aircrafts. Before you ever get into the cockpit of an aircraft, these two lessons are prerequisite to anything else you do in the cockpit. Okay? Lesson number one: always trust your instruments over your instincts. Now, everything, I really can't add to what you just said because you just gave a wonderful example of how trusting your instruments over your instinct saved lives. Your instruments are far more likely to be correct than your instincts, your feelings. But you didn't mention the second lesson. So I thought I would enlighten you because you may find this useful. The only time that you can have too much gas is when you're on fire.
This is true.
Page 112, Donnie, now that we can hear you, life
Oh.
is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you respond.
Yeah, this is a quote. It's obviously not original with me. It was actually hanging up in my ninth grade algebra class, and I just always remembered it. I mean, I looked at it every day for an entire year, and
Did
I
you learn
tried.
anything else in that class?
Not really. Nah, not math was not my strong point. But but yeah, I just always loved that because it's kind of, I mean, it's true. No, kinda, it just is. It's very true. You can't dictate what happens to you in life. I mean, could anybody predict 2020? I mean, 2020 was a crazy year, but we all had a choice of how we responded to it.
Yet we focus so much on manipulating our circumstances.
Sure, we do.
And,
Sure,
and,
we.
and a certain amount of that I think is normal and probably healthy. But if Paul said, I have what? Learned to be content in
Content.
whatever circumstances I am in.
Yes, yes. Godliness and contentment is great gain. Whenever we can be spirit led and we trust that God is completely sovereign in all things, it doesn't really matter what circumstance happens in our lives. We already know how to respond.
Amen.
He has given us an example of how to respond. And there is no temptation taken that which is common to man. And we have an answer. We really do. Whenever we are following the leading of the Spirit, we know how to respond in any situation. And that is a comfort and a peace.
Now, the next one is for us old people. And if you are a millennial, you probably won't have a clue what this is about. But let's quote it anyway, and we'll enlighten you. Life and change are like photography. We develop from the negatives.
From the negatives. So as I was writing that, I still remember writing that. As I was writing that, I was picturing my mom going to the store, taking her camera, opening up the back, pulling out the film,
The
sticking it in
film.
the thing, sticking it in the container, and then dropping it in the hole. And we'd go back like a week later and get the pictures. And it's the negatives. They take the negatives and they develop into 4x6 photos. And the negatives are not as good looking as the pictures. They're not in color. It's black and white. It's
Yuck,
or
yeah.
sepia or whatever. And but yeah, we our lives are developed by the negative things that happen to us, and they can either make us better or they can make us bitter, and or butter. It just it depends on how we handle it.
Moving on, and you'll notice the page numbers are incrementing. It's not that there isn't good stuff in between those pages, okay? But anyway, on page 125, one of the things that helps me to remember people's names is to mention them in prayer every day. What sage advice is that? Because I struggle with names, Donnie. That's why I have to put it up on the screen.
I'm gonna pull something off my wall here, and I'm gonna try to make it where it's just my. It's this piece of paper. I'll show you the back, but in the corner, I've just got. I don't know if.
Put it right in front of your nose, and that's where weekly prayer list.
Yes. Weekly prayer list, and it's got a bunch of names on it. I'll just kind of pass it by like that, so you can see that I'm not lying, and it stays on my wall, and I update it constantly. So if I meet somebody new, I'll write their name and where I met them or how I met them, and that's my prayer list. And the way that I do it is I've got a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday list on that piece of paper, and on the people on the Monday list, I pray for them every single Monday, and I call their names out. And if I remember their job, I'll mention their job. Or if the reason I know them is because of their kids, I'll pray for their kids. Whatever is attached to them that I know about, I'll pray about that for them. And it helps me just remember names, and it helps me remember people, because whenever you're praying for somebody, it draws a deeper connection to that person. And I enjoy connecting with people. I think people are the greatest thing that God has ever created. And I want to know, why did God create this person? And how can I help them know why that God created them, and just make it blossom? And, I want to pray for them.
Amen. Okay, I've got this one. We're going to have fun. Moments do not define you. Moments reveal you. Page 199.
Yeah, this one actually came out of the whole butter thing. This one kind of developed out of the whole butter thing, because I believe it was my assistant pastor Nathan who he kind of made the comment. He said, "Well, if you know Donnie, then you know that was really nothing out of the ordinary for him." So all that moment did was just pretty much reveal who I was. It just put a spotlight on it. I didn't change. It just revealed it. And great moments, whether good or bad, they just reveal you. And because you are who you are. You are who you are in the dark. You are who you are in the light. You are who you are.
But we pretend to be otherwise.
Oh, absolutely. We are very good at Mardi Gras masks. We are good at it. And it's sad that we are, because God made everyone so unique. And so, it's just be who God made you to be, and see what doors he opens for you. I used to apologize for my over eagerness. I used to apologize I used to kind of be embarrassed of my passion and my zeal for just everything that I'm a part of. But then I thought, you know what? God made me a passionate person, so I'm going to do that. And I'm not going to apologize for it. I'm going to love it.
Well, Donnie, as a coach, I say the same thing, but I say it very differently. Is heroes are born of crisis. And so are cowards. See, we don't really, we imagine what we might do in a situation, but we don't know until we get thrust into that situation without preparation. Then we find out who we are. See, a lot of times as a coach, we see a win. We see how a team reacts when they win. And some of them don't react appropriately. You shouldn't taunt the team that you just defeated should not be ridiculed. You should not attempt to humiliate. You should respect them, show them honor and respect. But some don't. But I tell you, when you really, really, really find out about a team, is when they're down. See, Zig Ziglar once said, "Man, like a tree, is easier measured when down."
That's good.
Yeah,
that is the big
Zig's a good guy. I like Zig. He was a big influence on my life, and your book reads a lot like Zig. Okay? On page 155, it is the second sentence that got my attention. But it says, if you want your life to be beyond memorable, think legacy, go the second mile. There's not much traffic there.
Yeah. Yeah, there's there's a Bible verse that I love, where Jesus is talking and he says, if you're compelled to go 1 mile, go the second mile. And this was actually in reference to it was very common living in Israel in that day. It was very common for Roman soldiers to come along and find a Jewish person and say, here, carry my bag for me, carry my pack for me. And if they did that, you had to carry it for that mile. You were required for 1 mile to carry that bag. It was the law that you had to carry that bag. And here's Jesus coming along saying, actually, if you're compelled to go 1, go 2. Do it a little differently. And, it is the second effort. It is the, after the parade, I did something which is kind of common for me. I pulled out a letterhead, and I wrote a thank you note. And I wrote the names of every single person that I met at the Today Show, from sound guy to hair
makeup,
person, to hair and makeup, to the producer, to the anchor, to everybody. I wrote their name and why I was thankful for that person, in this handwritten letter, and I just mailed it to them. Well, come to find out, whenever they got the letter, the main producer of the show loved it so much that she and one of the producers, and there's like a whole backstory of how I even know this, but one of the producers loved it so much, she pulled everybody together. They all handed it to Al. Al read the letter to everybody there in the studio. And I don't know if it's still there. It might be. But they took the letter and the photo of me and Al together. They framed it and they stuck it in, and they hung it up in their studio. And to my knowledge, that is the only picture of a guest that they have ever hung up in their studio. And that would have never happened if I wouldn't have written the letter or gone the second mile, because things can happen whenever you go out of your way for people. Things can happen whenever you look at the single mom and say, hey, you want me to watch your kids tonight so you can go grocery shopping? Things can happen whenever you find somebody and you just do something for them that they just help. There's something about being able to connect with other people and live your life for other people and sacrifice for others and have empathy for others that can change the dynamics. But it doesn't just happen in what's expected. It happens whenever you go above and beyond. And I see the clock, and so I apologize.
We have 2 frames, but I want to use this opportunity to share with you a real life experience that happened to me over 45 years ago, and I remember it like it was yesterday because it's that important, and it's very much related to what you just said. Because I hear some people saying, "Well, Donnie, you don't know, I'm tired. I work 8 to 5. Can't you hear?
Yeah, sure. I've been the tired person.
Right. Then you know how hot and humid it is in August down here. I live in North Florida, which is not that different from Louisiana. Okay, it's
Sure.
not flamingos and palm trees, folks. It's
you need to take a shower after being outside for 5 seconds.
There you go. A hot August afternoon, we were running laps. Now, what our coach would do is take those orange traffic cones and place them at the corners of the football field. So when you run laps, you will rue the day that you cut inside that cone, because the whole team would be punished. And I remember we would get smart as we approached the traffic cone. We would all kind of group up, get in a cluster. Yeah. And as we passed it, we'd kind of slide it in, with our foot. And I remember so well that hot August afternoon. Coming down the back side of the practice field, there was a blackberry patch there, just not 3 feet from the sideline of the field. There was this one young, he was a freshman. He was literally on his elbows and knees vomiting. We were that exhausted.
Yeah.
We were barely moving. I mean, we were hurting, Donnie. We were expended.
Yeah.
Well, we came to that corner, and whoever was trying to slide that cone in tipped it over.
Oh, no.
And underneath
no.
that cone was a snake.
Oh.
And we hollered, "Snake!" And Donnie, we bolted out of there like a covey of quail getting flushed out. And the coach walked over, picked up the artificial snake.
Oh, no.
And held it up. And he said, "I thought that you were tired. But apparently, you were only not inspired. It is deep within you. You've got to pull out that extra mile." I get chills thinking of it. This happened.
Well,
This literally happened.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I told this story at his 70th birthday. He had a celebration, and I was asked to speak. And there are many moments of coaching, of maturing as a man,
yeah.
or as a human being,
Yeah.
developing that character. But Donnie, when you think I've got nothing left to give, I'm give out. I need somebody to help me.
Yeah.
That's the moment. And if you run marathons, you have probably encountered moments like that yourself.
Yeah.
We're going to accelerate. Go ahead. We're going to accelerate that. Go ahead.
I remember my first half marathon. I was trying to get it under 4 hours, and I think it was 4 hours. Yeah, I was trying to break that 4 hour mark for me, and I was struggling the last 2.5 miles. And my brother, who was running the half marathon, he finished way before me, and he circled back around and came and found me and finished that 2.5 miles with me. And the whole time, now he's he kind of has like the Michael Jordan attitude. Let's go. It's like no excuses. You join this thing. You're gonna finish this thing, and just kind of kick my butt the entire way for those 2.5 miles. I'd want to slow down and stop. No, you don't want to stop. You can't stop. But I'm so glad he did, because I did exactly. I came in under the projected time, and I was really happy about it. But it wouldn't have happened if he wouldn't have circled back and ran that extra mile with me. Been extra. Sometimes it just is good to be a little extra.
Desire must be greater than the pain.
The greatest example of this we have is Jesus Christ,
Wow.
who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame. Who in the world won't be okay with enduring that kind of pain? There's got to be a carrot on a stick out there. And it says, for the joy who was set before him, endured. And sometimes if we want the joy of something, we've got to endure some things. Our desire, definitely, our desire for the dream, our desire for a better life, our desire for a better marriage, our desire to be a better parent, whatever it is, it's going to be some painful moments. But it has to be greater than the pain. What we know is out there, the picture we have painted in our brain, has to be greater than any painful moment that comes along.
The Romans engineered the most painful and torturous form of dying, called crucifixion. And it normally, now Jesus actually bled to death on the cross, but typically you suffocate. It's a very, very slow death and a very painful death. The pain is actually excruciating. Do you know what the word excruciating means?
I'm going to let you tell me.
Out of the cross. Our word that we use in routine colloquialism has its roots in the crucifixion. Last frame, Donnie. You are not responsible for knowing everything, but you are responsible for sharing everything you know.
Yeah. I don't. There's a. If this was, I've got two cups here. Pull my. I've got two cups here. This one's empty. This one has a little bit in it. I can't guarantee that what I have is going to fill this cup up. But what I have to be able to do is make sure at least I pour everything that I have out of me. And I can't do everything for everyone, but I can find one person. I can find someone that I can pour into. I'm not responsible to know everything, but if God has allowed something to flow into my life, if God has allowed a nugget of wisdom, if God has allowed something to flow inside of me, I have to. If I hoard it, now this might cross someone's theology, and I apologize for that. But if I hoard the blessings that God has given to me, it's going to become stale and dry fruit, and God's not going to allow new, fresh blessings to flow into me. So I kind of think of it like a conduit or PVC pipe. There's Jesus, and I've got to connect to him, and then I've got to connect to somebody else, and whatever he pours into me, I've got to make sure that it pours into somebody else, because I am nothing more than a conduit. I'm not, and I can't stop the flow, because if I stop the flow, Jesus will move on to another piece of PVC.
Donnie, in football, or all sports, I think, but football in particular, there's a phrase, leave everything on the field.
Yeah.
We are not guaranteed to win, but
Right.
we must leave everything on the field. We give all that we have. And I'll tell you another story. You said, I forget which point this would connect with, but having to do with giving 100%. And I remember it like it was yesterday. Donnie, we only had 14 players. If we wanted to know how many men were on the field, we literally looked at the sideline and counted that. So we had to rotate in and out a lot. So you'd rotate out at one position, you'd rotate in at another. So everybody spent some time on the sideline just to catch some air and get some counsel from the coaches and so forth. And it was my turn to catch a little air. I was a senior. And coach came up to me and asked, Prasic, can you do Jim's job? Well, you would have to know my coach, Donnie, because when you got in his crosshairs with a question, there was no answer that would be satisfactory, okay?
Yeah.
But I was a senior, so I stood up to him. And I bowed up and I said, Coach, you can count on me that I will give it 100%. He said, sit down. By the way, you didn't sit down on the sideline. You stood.
You stood.
He said,
That's right.
Sit down. What? He said, Jim is giving it 100%. I need to get the job done. And I'll never forget it. We say, oh, you get an A for effort. No, everybody made an effort.
Yeah.
Everybody did. Donnie, we actually we did pretty good. We've never done this before, and I really have enjoyed every moment of it. And I am drawn into there, just going back in my mind and remembering some of the things in your book, and there are so many more. But I hope that, as what the last frame said, we have shared some things from his book that, whether you buy the book or not,
which I hope you do,
I'm sure you do, and I hope you sell millions of them because you appeared on this program. I really do, so that you can write me a big fat check, And
there we go.
But Donnie, it's always you're a high energy, good person. We love being around you. You have blessed us, and this has been a wonderful experiment that maybe we will do again, and we appreciate it. Now, folks, Donnie was not sure that he could be here tonight. Moments before we went on the air, you were returning from an event that you were committed to.
Yes, yeah. My daughter is in pre-K, And so tonight was pre-K graduation at 6 o'clock. And I looked at my wife and said, "Hey, we going to be home for 9?" And she's like, "Oh, yeah, that'll be an easy thing." But here's the thing. My wife is the principal of the school. And so things typically last a little bit longer whenever you're the boss.
Yeah.
And so we got home somewhere around, I don't know, 8:15, 8:30. We slid in, tried to help get the kids ready for bed, and I slid over here for this. But it's such an honor to be able to do it, and so much fun. Thank you for letting me talk about my book, and going. Thank you for reading it. That's an honor that
Well,
you read it.
I finally got around to it. But Donnie, thank you for pouring your heart out. Thank you for your passion, and we just are blessed because you have been here, and we appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Coach, for your time. I appreciate it.
Folks, there is the view high atop the Eagle's Nest, the broadcast facilities here at pjnet.tv. What a nice experiment this has been, an hour and 10 minutes of uplifting encouragement based on the truth found in the Holy Scripture and the life and teachings of Jesus Christ. What could be better? Well, I tell you what, we're going to wrap it up, but before I leave, I challenge you to answer to yourself 2 questions that I make it a practice to ask myself. Here's the first one. What is the boldest thing that you have ever done for Jesus Christ? The second question then would be, well, how long ago was that? Don't be satisfied with either answer.